Jeff Burton.
How's everybody?
I got a quote. First, what?
I'm gonna sit down. I don't know.
Please sit down. Please sit down. Well, which leads me to a question about this weather. It's hot. It's humid. It's sticky. What is it going to feel like in the car?
This track is probably the most sensitive track we go to as far as heat. So the track will be really slick when we first start practice today. It'll be very low grip. It's it's one of those things you really gotta think about it when you're in the car. What's the car feel like compared to where you think it's going to feel like on Sunday? Because on Sunday, it looks like the temp's going to come down to like low 80s, which will be better for all of us, won't it? And so from a driving standpoint, you gotta think about how's that going to change in the car. These are the days when the car is the hottest, when it's humid, when it's hot. When you're coming in and out of the garage area a lot, the car doesn't have a chance to get, it just gets heat soaked. And so today will be, even though it's only 2 hours of practice, today will be a long 2 hours because you sit in that car so much when the car is not moving, and that's when the heat really gets bad. And how today are running carbon fiber composite seats. Those seats are hotter than the older seats. These cars are hotter than the older cars. We've done a lot of things. We run air through the seat now, so you're always circulating air through the seat. That's a positive. We have air circulating through the helmets, which has been a godsend. I mean, to be quite honest, racing a full face helmet with no air for 4 hours, you literally couldn't do it. My hose fell off at Watkins Glen last year, and I'm like, I can't do this. I mean, it was so hot. And I grew up not having head blowers and not having all that stuff. But with the cars today, they're made so no air gets in them. You keep all the air out of them. You seal everything up. It's just incredibly hot.
I see you today like, I led this many laps.
No question. I believe you are what your record says you are. And, there's certainly circumstances that you have to pay attention to. And you have to really do a good job of analyzing how good you and your team are. And not always just let the finishing order determine that. There's times when you won the race and you really weren't the best car. There's also times when you finished 25th when you had the best car. But at the end of the day, they don't pay you points, they don't give you a trophy based on how good you ran. They give you a trophy and pay you points based on where you finished. So I really believe that there's a lot to learn in numbers, but also there's a story told in numbers that isn't true. So you have to really be analytical when you look at numbers. But again, you are what your record says you are, and you can't ignore that.
The whole have at it, boys. I mean, do you think that it has changed the driving, or it hasn't?
You know what? Going into the year, I didn't think it would make any difference at all. Because honestly, I mean, you guys raise your hands. How many times have you guys seen a driver penalized for something he did during the race. I mean, it's very few times that we ever seen it. And so really in my world, it's always been kind of guys have at it. I mean, it's been one of those things where NASCAR's always taken the approach that said, you guys know what's going on. Y'all kind of police it yourselves. When you cross the line, we're going to step in. So I thought, what's the big deal? No difference. But you know what? I was wrong. It's been a big difference. Racing is more aggressive than it's ever been. It's more. Listen, restarts on a 500-mile race are more aggressive than when I grew up racing 50-lap features. I mean, it's unbelievable how aggressive the racing is now. We've seen a lot of post-race altercations. We've seen during race altercations. I think the drivers are testing the have-at-it deal. You know what I mean? I think the drivers have said, well, they said I could do this, I'm going to go find out. And I think it has made a difference.
Do you think that they've been more strict with putting people on probation or less strict?
I don't know. I haven't paid much attention to it. I never knew what probation meant, to be quite honest with you. I think you're either guilty or you're not. You should be penalized or you shouldn't be. And I think I think that when you get the first time something happens, nothing should happen because it's the first time and everybody deserves the benefit of the doubt. Then the second time happened, well, the guy, he's a repeat offender. You start getting a third or fourth time, well, now you got a guy that doesn't care about the rules. And that's when you really need to whack them hard. And I think that, it's kind of a tough deal for NASCAR when they say have at it, boys, but then they turn around and penalize you. That's kind of a tough deal. I do believe though that Mike Eldon early in the year, this winter, said there's a line that can be crossed, and I think that line has been crossed a few times this year. And in my opinion, I think NASCAR could have been a little more strict when the line got crossed. On the other hand, I think that the have at it, boys, has made the racing better. I think it's made the drivers relax a little bit, and I'm all cool with that. I'm what we do is supposed to be aggressive. It's supposed to, rubbing's racing, but wrecking's not racing, and I think that's where the line should be drawn.
And it's also
track. NASCAR didn't make the history. That museum's not over there full of NASCAR stuff. We're guests at this facility. That's a great thing. To me, it's an awesome experience to be able to come into a place that has a storied history like this that we didn't create. We should be humbled that we're here, and I think most of us are. We should feel like we're truly guests of this. When you come to Daytona, hey, you know what? That's our house. We're not in our house. This house was built by somebody else, and we're riding their coattails to be here. And I think that's an awesome experience for all of us to be part of. And it's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of NASCAR guys are like, wow, that ain't the way it is. NASCAR is bigger than IRL. Okay, it is now, but it wasn't 50 years ago, and it hadn't always been. And it's cool for us. I think this is a humbling experience for us, and it's. My son was here. We raced here about 3 or 4 weeks ago, quarter midget racing. We raced in the parking lot over there, and I rolled through the gate, rolled through this tunnel over here with a 9-year-old, and I got the same feeling. I thought, man, this is the coolest thing in the world. This is maybe the most famous racetrack in the world. And you got a 9-year-old and 3 other 100 kids out here racing at the most famous racetrack in the world, and I'm here doing that too. And Daytona's special. It's awesome, but it's when you're accustomed to something. I'm accustomed to going to Daytona. It's what I grew up watching. It's what I grew up doing. When I come here, it's just a totally different feel, and I think that's healthy for us. Leading up to the race and when the race is over. But when you're preparing for this race, if you're preparing differently for this race because it's a big race, you hadn't prepared correctly for all the other ones. And I think that every race requires the same amount of preparation and the same amount of commitment. This race pays a lot of money, but I can promise you I never started racing for money, and I'm not doing it now. What I care about is that trophy, and I care about those points. But I won the 4th of July race at Daytona. If somebody came up to me today and said, we'll trade you the 4th of July race for a Daytona 500, I wouldn't take that trade, because every race is special and every race is important, because whatever race you're in is the most important race in the world. Now when that race is over, they have different meaning, but during that race they're all the same. And pre-race, prior race, they're different, but during the race, the preparation level, your willingness to do the things that you need to do to win it, they should be the same no matter what race you're in.